Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast that opens the door to the heart of property and block management, bringing you insights, innovation and real-world solutions from the finest minds in the industry. And today I'm very excited to welcome Kelly Swingler. And Kelly has carved a niche in transforming workspaces into environments where individuals thrive and challenges are overcome. Her journey, marked by a profound understanding of human psychology, resilience, and the mechanisms of burnout, brings a fresh perspective to the pressing issues faced by the property management sector. And with an industry as demanding as property management, where the stakes of service and customer satisfaction are high, Kelly's insights into preventing burnout, promoting well-being, and leading with impact are more valuable than ever. So Kelly, thank you for being here today.
That made me sound quite cool in the intro, didn't it?
You are very cool. You're very cool. Can you start by telling me a bit about your journey and how you came to be what you're doing now?
I would probably say now, and this sounds like really cliche, right? I'd probably now call it like my purpose, like this is my entire why. And I've had a couple of light bulb moments over the last few weeks, actually. So I started in HR, in kind of retail management, actually, like back in '98. So I wanted to go into law when I was at school. Saw myself, kind of in the courtroom, speaking to juries and doing all of that wonderful stuff. But I did 2 lots of work experience at 2 different solicitors and just realised that it was chaotic. All of the piles of paper all over the floor just gave me panic. And the amount of kind of overflowing ashtrays and whiskey bottles on filing cabinets, I just thought this is probably not for me. So I didn't then know what to do, had got kind of university offers, decided I wasn't going to uni, started a kind of retail management training scheme, which I absolutely loved, but I knew it was kind of the HR space that I wanted to go into. But even those years ago, so kind of 1998, the reason that HR had appealed to me at the time, I wanted to stop rather what I had coined the Monday to Friday dying syndrome that I saw so many of my friends and family go through. So I thought if I was in HR, right, I could make a difference and I could really create amazing places to work, and this would all be wonderful. And if everybody that I knew, right, we've all been there, right, we've sat in the hairdressers or we've sat at the pub with friends, with speaking to colleagues or whatever, like we all hate our managers, right? We all hate what we're being paid. We all hate our working hours. And I just thought I can change this. So that was kind of my thing in 1998. And I just kept progressing. So I got, it was like promotion after promotion after promotion. I had an 8-year period where I was promoted 7 times. And kind of during those 8 years, I'd added like over £100,000 to my salary. I was managing huge teams. I'd been headhunted for a huge organisation in London to be the HR director there as part of a large transformation that they were going through. So I kind of kept having all of this career success. I'd done all of this as well at the same time. So I had twins when I was 20. I had completed kind of 2 degrees throughout my 20s. And I suppose I was climbing the ladder and doing what we are all told success looks like, right? Success looks like the big house, the sports car and kind of the SUV, the big salary, the designer clothes. Like this is, and once you get all of that will make you happy. And then I burned out really badly when I was 32. I reached a really, really severe burnout. I started to develop the physical signs of burnout in January 2013. This is because I've been talking lots of different dates with him today. Looking at his date of birth, he's like 2000. I'm like, what year are we? So 2013, I the physical signs of burnout really started to impact me in the January, to the point that I was passing out from really severe pain. But I was being told by lots of doctors, and I was being admitted to hospital every time I passed out. I was basically being told that there was nothing wrong with me. So then you start to think it's all in your head. And I'm like, there's like this, I'm not making this up, right? This is absolutely happening. In and out of hospital, being admitted maybe once a month. And then in the July, I ended up having 2 operations in 48 hours. And my body pretty much at that point decided it wanted to shut down. And I suppose I kind of say now that my first burnout made me seriously ill and my second almost killed me. So I decided in 2014 I was going to leave corporate, because actually I'd started to look for other jobs, and as part of my own burnout recovery, I just had this intuitive feeling that I just needed to get really back to myself. I'd been working in a really toxic workplace, toxic environment, and I'd kind of lost who I was. And this whole kind of thing about wanting to, change the world of work for people and stop this Monday to Friday dying, actually with a lot of the projects that I had been involved in, really all I'd been doing for 5 years was looking at projects to save money. And I was brilliant at doing these projects. One of my projects had saved like 44 million in the first year. And it was going to kind of save 40 million year on year after that. So you kind of, I was good at doing what I was doing, but actually it was also really difficult and challenging because when I thought about it, all I'd really been doing for 5 years was saving money, writing strategies, and making loads of people redundant. And that wasn't what I really went into HR for. I went into it because I genuinely wanted to create really, really great workplaces.
Yeah.
And I'd realized that I wasn't. So as I started to look for other jobs, just thinking, actually, I just want out of this toxic workplace, I couldn't find anything that looked any different to what I was doing. And then I was on a training course. I was completing my executive coaching qualification, actually, and heard myself say for the very first time I wanted to start my own business. So I did.
Okay.
And I start in 2014. I left corporate with no financial cushion, and make that really clear, no financial cushion whatsoever. I was married at the time. My husband is like, I was the main breadwinner. I was earning, this huge 6-figure salary. We'd invested every single penny into buying and renovating a property. So we had nothing left in the bank. And I was just like, I can't do it anymore. I'm not doing it. And he said, wait 2 years. And within 3 months, I'd left and started my own business. I started an award-winning people and change consultancy. I was making a lot of money very, very quickly. I was working with amazing clients. And then I received a phone call to tell me that my replacement had died.
Wow.
And she died in her sleep whilst away on a leadership residential. And I received another phone call 2 days later to say that I hadn't been the first and I hadn't been the second and I hadn't been the third HR director to become really ill in that organization. And again, for any of you, for you and listeners, if you've left an organization under a cloud, right, or if you've left under a comp agreement, or maybe the organization hasn't been right and you've left, I kind of coin it now like the Harry Potter syndrome, whereas you become a bit like Voldemort, right, where you are nobody's ever allowed to mention your name again.
Yeah.
And really that's what I'd come across in this organization. Nobody would talk to me about why these previous HRDs were no longer there. But I received this phone call, and this phone call was basically that 4 previous HRDs to me had all become really, really ill as a result of this organisation. And I remember reaching out to the CIPD, so the awarding body for HR at the time, to say, hey, what are you doing for HR? This is a situation. And I was just told to contact my employee assistance provider. And I just remember thinking, that's not good enough. That was really where I went full on. Like, I needed to learn everything I possibly could about stress and everything I possibly could about burnout and everything I possibly could about toxic workplaces. And I did qualification after qualification in terms of hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, empowerment coaching, meditation, yoga, emotional intelligence, toxicity in the workplace. I was doing everything that I could. And then I reached burnout for the second time. And that one did really nearly kill me. But I think I needed to go through the second to realize that actually we can know, right? We know what we should be doing to look after ourselves. We know how to reduce our stress. We know how to take care of ourselves, but actually knowing it and living it are 2 completely different things. And it was after that second that I thought I need to be doing something different. So I started to focus much more on like well-being in the workplace, toxic leadership, like why were leaders acting and behaving in the way that they were. And actually, what I've uncovered over the years is actually a lot of that is stress driven. It's fear driven. I'm not saying everybody is a nice person in leadership. Actually, for a lot of them, right, it is because of the stress. It is because of the pressure. It is because they don't have the role models. It is because they believe that command and control and toxicity and leading through fear is the way to go about things, because that's what their mentors and managers and leaders have all kind of taught them. And then, so I continued in my people and change consultancy, and I was kind of doing this dual role for a few years. Started then a kind of master's in organizational change. I was going to go on to do my PhD, focusing on the courage of leaders during times of change. Lockdown hit.
Right.
And I was like, okay, let's put the PhD on hold, right? Because this will be the ideal opportunity to complete my PhD, right? How are leaders going to behave during this period of change? This will be ideal. But I think, I was still working. I was very lucky from an organization perspective that actually we were still working, we were still growing, we were still doing everything that really needed to be done during that time. But I just thought this isn't what I want anymore. I went kind of full on into all of the burnout stuff basically in 2020. I didn't finish that PhD, so I didn't go on to kind of finish the research of that. I stopped at my master's in org change. But again, I'm so passionate now about what I do and what it is that we need to change, that this is the year. So in September, I start at Lancaster University doing my PhD in workplace wellbeing. Of course, my entire focus will be burnout. So everything that I do now, like I eat, sleep, breathe, live, burnout and burnout prevention. Like that's me from like the minute I wake up in the morning until the minute that I go to bed at night.
Wow, is all I can say to all of that, really. I mean, it's an incredible journey, but also a really scary journey for you, I'm sure, because I reached, well, it was put down to burnout and high levels of stress at the end of 2022. I nearly died from sepsis. So again, the doctors, all these tests, how can somebody of my age, of somebody who's relatively healthy end up with double pneumonia and sepsis? And they put it down to high levels of stress, and I just completely burnt myself out. In your experience, Kelly, how does burnout manifest itself in high pressure environments like property management and like HR, and where you've got a lot of people who strive to be that high performing individual? Are there signs of burnout in people?
And this for me is the differentiating factor actually when it can come to a lot of burnout. So the number one cause, and this will not be the same for everybody, I realize some of what I'm about to say goes very much into kind of stereotyping, which I'm not about, but for the purposes of today we'll go into stereotypical examples. So the number one cause of burnout still globally is toxic workplaces. But of course, we know that not every single person that's in a toxic workplace experiences burnout. So we can come on to that in a moment. The second biggest cause of burnout is actually what's been coined as, and there's an organisation called Softer Success who did some research. I think it was with either King's College London or University College London. I want to say King's College, but my mind's gone blank on that one. They did some research a couple of years ago, and they actually coined what they deem to be what's called moral injury. And moral injury is actually when we see things, and for me, this still links back to the toxic workplaces, but actually it can be more than that. So moral injury is if we see some things that are not right, but in effect, like nobody's questioning it, nobody's allowing it to happen. Like we can see maybe how quickly it would take to fix things, but it's just not happening. So the fastest growing sectors where this moral injury is present are healthcare. So if we think about the NHS, education, HR then comes third, and then we've got a kind of cluster of other kind of sectors and organisations that come into it from that perspective. So potentially for your sector, in and around kind of property management, right? If you're seeing, I don't know, councils that aren't doing what they need to be doing, or building firms that aren't doing what they need to be doing, or security firms, or if you've got, I don't know, blocks of residences where, I don't know, there might be high rates of poverty, or there might be lots of vulnerable adults living there, or any of those kinds of things, all it might take to fix that is somebody needs to make that decision to stop that thing from happening. But actually, we're not seeing that because there's too much red tape, or there's too many processes, or we need to speak to 20,000 people, or nobody wants to spend £10 on something because it's got to go through some procurement process that's going to take 6 months to deal with. So in that perspective, it can be more of the moral injury where we see so many things that are wrong, and we know it would just take that conversation or that phone call or that email to fix it. And yet there's so much kind of red tape or so much going on behind the scenes that stops us from getting there. There's lots of information out there about the 12 signs of burnout. You might notice things like getting more headaches, but you'll find an excuse for that, right? Oh, I spent too much time on my screen today, or I need some new glasses, or I need an optician's appointment. You might notice that your sleep will be impacted, but you'll put that down to, well, it was too hot last night, it was too cold last night, well, I had a late night, maybe had one too many glasses of wine, so we start to excuse that. There might be things that start to happen around kind of digestion, so you might start to get some stomach upsets. You might find that you develop intolerances or things around food, but again, you'll give an excuse for that. I think the two biggest signs that we ignore, and I think other people around us ignore for quite a while, are the fact that firstly, we tend to literally become addicted to work. And when I talk about addicted to work, it literally is, and this is my kind of tester question, I suppose, for everybody, like, how would you feel about taking a break from work? Like, if I said to you, you needed to take tomorrow off, or even if I said to you, I want you to go and take your lunch break today, or I told you I wanted you to finish at 4 o'clock today, what comes up for you? And if it, oh no, I can't do that. Like, I can't take breaks, I can't stop. What if the emails come in? What if the phone calls come in? What if I miss this phone call? What if this happens? What if this happens? And all of that kind of mind chatter comes, right? I can't, it's not safe for me to take a break. It's not safe for me to stop working. It's not safe for me to not check my emails on my phone 10,000 times a day, whilst I'm out with my kids, or whilst I'm watching something on TV, or whilst I'm having dinner with my family. It's that level of addiction, right? It does not feel safe for you to take the break. Like, that's the most obvious sign as far as I'm concerned. Linked to that then, but also in some cases slightly different, is basically your withdrawal from life. And what I mean by that is all of the things that you used to love, right? Whether it's a walk, going out on your bike, getting to the gym, doing yoga, sitting and laughing with your friends, going for, I don't know, bottomless brunches on a Saturday, or a pint, watching football, watching kids, going to the park, painting, draw, like whatever you used to do that makes you feel amazing. You think you've only been doing it for 10 minutes and it's like 4 hours later and you're like, oh, it's the best day ever. We withdraw from our relationships, we withdraw from our hobbies, we withdraw from the things that make us feel amazing. And of course, that combined with this kind of work addiction then become part of this kind of toxic burnout cycle, because you're withdrawing from the things that give you energy, relax you and de-stress you and calm you and make you laugh and drive all of this fun and creativity in you. You stop doing all of those and you fill all of that time with more work. And because you're then filling your time with more work, you then got no time or energy for all of the other stuff anyway. And you just end up in this kind of constant spiral, in this kind of like toxic dance of just kind of pulling back from there. And at the same time, all of those other signs will be present, right? What's happening with your mind, your thoughts, your body, your emotions. There might be lots of emotional outbursts. Anxiety attacks, panic attacks can be quite common. Uncontrollable emotional responses. That could either come out in just lots of anger or shouting for no reason. It could be bursting into tears for seemingly no reason whatsoever, like having to run into the bathroom to just cry and you've absolutely no idea why. So it can look very different. And I would also say, and I will always caveat with this, Jodie, some of those signs that I've spoken about can be linked to lots and lots and lots and lots of other health problems. So, and even with all of the training and all of the experience I've done, I am not qualified to diagnose burnout. That needs to be a medical professional. Although I've had some people kind of laugh at me like, you're more qualified in burnout than some medical. I cannot diagnose. And even if people are listening to this and thinking, oh, like that's what I'm going through, I must be at burnout. What I will always say is, you will know what your level of normal is, right? You know what normal feels like in your head and your body. And if there is anything that starts to feel abnormal, or you think this is not me, I would urge everybody to go and speak to GP, medical professional, therapist, whoever it is that you might need to go and speak to, because it could be burnout and it could be something else that's underlying that may also need to be resolved for you.
Well, thank you for that. That's really interesting. It certainly hits a nerve for me.
And I'm going to say, and this is again the other thing, right? I remember like seeing your message, or I think you'd messaged me, hadn't you? Like, I'm in hospital now, and it feels like it happens instantly, right? We think that level of burnout, we think it just happens overnight, burnout can take years to get to that point where we think it just happened instantly. Like it literally can take months and in some cases years to get us to that point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, somebody explained something to me once that because I was bullied really badly as a child. So somebody explained that that was from like the age of 9 to 15. And then when I was 16 and going through my GCSEs, my body just shut down.
Yeah.
I really struggled with everything. I got to my exams, but revision and classes and all that kind of stuff was really, really difficult. But it took that length of time to get to physically end up the way that I was. But now, like the neural pathways, if you like, of those sort of levels of stress did hit me quite quickly. It didn't take years, but it took months. Obviously, it probably took maybe 18 months before I did hit that wall. But is there a connection there between like sort of your neural pathways and thinking that, it's this happened to me before and it's going to happen again, so it's like your body instantly gets poorly?
Yeah,
Is
I
there
mean,
a link there?
yeah, it definitely can do. So again, if we look at it from a neuroscience perspective, so we are using what's called our prefrontal cortex to have this conversation. And our prefrontal cortex, I'm not using any of the scientific stuff here. So if everybody's like, this is really simple, it's simple for a reason. But basically, our prefrontal cortex is attached to a part of our brain that we call like our intellectual part of our brain, right? So the intellectual part of our brain is come up with like all of the solutions, right? It's the positive, happy, healthy part of us that keeps us going. So that's our intellectual part. And it's only when we are in the intellectual part of our brain that we can come up with solutions and ideas and answers and be really positive and all of those sorts of things. But we can only stay in the intellectual part of our brain when our stress levels are low. As our stress levels rise and increase, we move from the intellectual part of our brain into what we call the primitive part of the brain. And in the primitive part of our brain, we really have kind of like three parts. There's lots, but we focus on these three parts. So the first is our amygdala. So this is like our fight, flight, freeze response. We then have what's called our hippocampus, which is all of our patterns and behaviors. So if we think about that as like our inbuilt like filing cabinets, document systems, right, hard drive, that's our hippocampus where all of those behaviors are stored. And then we have what's called our hypothalamus. So that's the part that produces all of our chemicals. So that's our stress chemical reaction. We're in the primitive part of our brain, the higher our stress levels go. And if we stay in a constant state of stress for for a long period of time, we really are in that primitive part of our brain. That primitive part of our brain is really only there to keep us safe, right? It's our inbuilt security system, right? This is our inbuilt like fire alarms and security alarms and whatever. What am I thinking about? Like carbon monoxide detectors, right? That's all of that stuff, right? That's all of that stuff that is kind of there. So of course it triggers lots and lots of other things. And it's not, that part of our brain is not designed to be innovative because it's only the intellectual part of our brain that can come up with solutions. So what happens in that part is, if what I did last time when I felt these similar things, right? So the last time the smoke alarm was going off, I wafted a tea towel in front of it and opened a window. It remembers, oh, last time the smoke alarm went off, I wafted a tea towel and I opened the window. So it's going back for what did I do last time that kept me safe? So if what you did last time was retreat or panic or complete exams or down a bottle of vodka or eat a box of donuts or run or whatever it was, your body keeps you in that state. And I kind of, I suppose, coin this again, because lots of people say, well, actually, if you're in that height, right, just take a break, right? Take a break, rest, look after yourself. So if we go back, when we were all living in caves, we were on red alert all of the time. If we were going out to hunt and gather, at the point that we saw wild animals, we weren't then like, we've gone out to hunt, right? We want to make the kill. We want to take that kill back to our village, back to our tribe, back to our community. We're not being like, oh my, like there's the herd, right? We need to get one. We're not then thinking, let's stop, let's have a picnic, let's crack open the champers and like just chill in the sun for a few hours. Because of course, if we can then see them, can they see us? And that stress, whilst hopefully, we're not kind of having to go out and hunt in that way for our food anymore, but actually what we have modified all of that behavior to is like the next email, the next exam, the next phone call, the mortgage statement, the bills, the doctor's letter. Whilst we're already in a high stress state, in that kind of red alert, really looking out for the herd of animals, every single one of those triggers a different stress response. It tells us that we need to stay in that high stress. It tells us that it's not safe for us to stop. It's not safe for you to stop and sunbathe and take a break, because it is only designed to keep you going. It will only pick up on the behaviors and patterns that you've created previously. And at the same time, it's firing off all of these chemical responses to keep you in that fight, flight, freeze response.
That's really interesting. I love how you've explained it as well, because, obviously it's a bit of a tricky subject, but that was really, really helpful. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
In terms of leadership and property management companies, well, all companies really, but obviously specifically property management for our listeners, how do you think company owners, that sort of thing, should approach workload management to try and mitigate the risk of burnout?
Oh, that's a really great question. And again, I will say workload isn't the only factor. And I think we need to be aware of that, but we definitely do need to be having conversations with our people. So leaders need to be speaking to people to find out how people are coping with or not coping with their workload.
Okay.
That has to be first and foremost. Some of us, I still now, right, I've been through 2 periods of burnout. I will still say I am still an overperforming high achiever. My parents will tell you that's how I came out of the womb. Right, it's true, right? For some of us, it is our natural state. And again, pre-burnout, and even when I do them now, any kind of psychometric or personality test or whatever that I do will always, based on my personality type, I am prone to high stress. But that also means that I do need some of that high stress to keep me motivated.
Yeah, I get that.
And actually, we all need stress, right? If we were, if we all had, if we had no stress, nothing to think about, nothing to worry about, none of us would get out of bed every day. But we all need a level of stress. And of course, that will then be signaling, our brain will be creating some of that adrenaline, right? And that's also good for us if we keep it within healthy levels. We all need good stress, and it's the good stress that helps us to achieve our goals and get stuff done, get us out of bed in the morning, start businesses, right? Do whatever it is that we need to do, grow our businesses. All of that is driven by an element of fear. But if it becomes uncontrollable, that's when we need to be doing something about it. And I do think what we really need to be creating are, and I've talked about toxic workplaces, basically we want the opposite of that, right? Mm-hmm. We want psychologically safe workplaces, emotionally safe workplaces, physically safe workplaces. I need to be able to say to you as my manager, I'm really struggling, and not just have you say, well, we're all really busy at the minute, Kelly, you're just going to have to get on with it. Like, that's not helpful. And sometimes, and we know that those sorts of responses are happening, and that's because everybody is feeling the pressure, but it isn't an answer and it isn't a solution. So actually, if everybody is genuinely feeling that way, what are we going to do about it? We need to be able to say, actually, I've been able to do this for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but it's now starting to get too much. Like, I can't carry on like this. And know when things are going to change. So yes, we need to be looking at workloads. We need to be looking at work paces. We need to be looking at outcomes and goals, and aligning really all of our to-do lists and all of our actions with business goals, customer requirements, all of that stuff needs to happen, but we should not be jeopardizing our own well-being. And as leaders and managers, we should not be expecting our people to jeopardize their own well-being, right? Yeah. If we think about it from a physical health and safety perspective, you'll have audits, risk registers, risk reports every single time you go on site or in a building, right? All of that kind of stuff will be there. It shouldn't be any different when it comes to our mental and emotional well-being. And actually, we need to be considering, is this a risk to our emotional well-being? Is it a risk to our mental well-being? Is it a risk to our psychological well-being, in the same way that we would look at things from a physical health and safety perspective? And we need to be creating, from those safe environments, there needs to be open communication. But more than just the communication, we need some of that connection. Like, I need to be able to say to you, I'm struggling, and I need to feel that you have heard that and seen it, and that you are doing stuff, rather than me. So there's no point speaking to Jodie because she never listens anyway. Like, there's absolutely no point.
I've been in that situation in the past, and I would hope that, you know, my team feel like they can talk to me about anything, whether that's work related or not. And I think we have to realize as well, in the industry that we're in, that it's not one size fits all. Unfortunately, everybody has different sizes of portfolio. Everybody has different areas, different types of clients to deal with. Some people deal with, you know, just one owner of the entire building, and some deal with 472 different leaseholders.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, managing burnout from a manager's perspective, or and managing the team's well-being is not going to be a one size fits all situation. How can property management professionals, I guess, like me, who own a business and run a business and work in it and do all of the things, you know, as well as my team, set healthy boundaries with clients to help prevent their burnout?
I suppose, I think you said it, like, it has to come from a boundary perspective. So actually, and you know, and I think this forms part, and you know, some of it may be, again, correct me if I'm wrong with this, Jodie, you're the pro in this area, but some of it might be like clients that you are inheriting, right? And some of it might be clients that you are, let's say, acquiring. From that perspective, like actually going out and physically getting them. So you've got those kind of two different, but I think to everybody at that kind of initial contracting stage, I do think there needs to be some of that. Actually, if I'm dealing with one property manager for what, let's say, one building, one estate, one whatever, and I know that things can be pretty straightforward, actually I might be able to say to that one person, you know, I can come back to you within an hour or 2 hours or half a day or whatever it might be, if ever you have an issue, right? But if I'm dealing with 472 different people, that's going to be impossible. So it really is, I think, again, it comes back to, like, what's the size of the role to start off with? We need to understand that. One person versus 472, you know, I mean, that's 472 fits all, right? Or fits none, depending on the way you look at it. So I think we need to understand that some of our people are dealing with some of those differences. That needs to be the first thing, right? We need to acknowledge that we're not just looking at buildings, we are looking at people. 472 people are very different than one person. That needs to be the first stage. Then we can start to look at whether you want to look at SLAs or deliveries or whatever. Then we start to say, actually, how realistic is it? If 472 people contacted me today, how quickly am I going to get through? And of course, then you've got to prioritize. So what does that prioritization look like? Do I need a team of assistants, somebody else to help me in prioritizing, in being able to deal with some of these queries? So it might be that I have a larger team to help me to deal with that. And again, we need to ensure that our people are supported with the resources to help them deliver. We all need stress, but if we keep stress within those manageable confines, then we banish burnout. So we start with that. But one of the big things that I will say to everybody when it comes to burnout around boundaries specifically is, for a lot of us, right? And I might say to you, I might, like, you and I might be having a conversation, Jodie, and you might say something, and I might be thinking, gosh, she's just overstepped my boundary, right? She's really overstepped my boundary with what she's just said there. And my attitude might change, my behavior might change, my language might change, everything might change about me. And you're just like, oh, Kelly's just gone a bit weird, right? Did I say something wrong? If I haven't communicated my boundaries to you, or at the point that you overstep it, if I don't say to you, actually, Jodie, like, that's a boundary for me, you don't know. And in a lot of cases, I think that's where we ruin the relationships that we have, because we know that we've got a boundary, or we put a boundary in place, but we never tell anyone. And then we just get really irritated when people cross them.
Yeah.
And people, even when we do put them in place, right? For anybody that's parents, Jodie, I know you've got your daughter, I've got, you know, four boys that live here. Every single person on this planet will want to push and test your boundaries, because they want to get what they want. They're not interested in your boundaries. But the more you put that boundary in place, so actually we do go to bed at 7 o'clock in this house, right? This is what we're doing. And, the kids, well, I just, no, 7:30, no, we go at 7, right? That's just what we do. If it's a customer, you have to come back to me in 10 minutes. No, I don't come back to you in 10 minutes. I come back to you in an hour as we agreed. But the more that you keep bending and flexing your boundaries, is that it's not the boundary that you're setting, it's the fact that you will drop everything last minute because you have let your boundaries go, that then causes a lot of the expectation from other people to go. If I know that it's a 24 or 48-hour response time, that's the boundary. Do you know what? If you come back to me in 12 hours, that's an added bonus.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly telling me that it's 48 hours and you're coming back to me in 10 minutes, that's the standard that you're setting. And I will then be demanding a 10-minute response every single time I get in contact with you.
I definitely fell into that trap when I first started the business, mainly because I didn't have that many clients. I had the time, I had SLAs in place, but I also had the time to do the 10-minute response. And I set myself such a high standard. When I did get busier, I felt like I was letting everybody down all the time. It was a really, really tricky one to try and manage.
Yeah, and it happens all the time, right? Because that is the trap that we can fall into. It's recommunicating, right? It's almost recontracting to say the SLAs are this. We appreciate over the last few months we've been able to deal with this much more quickly. We're really pleased that we've been able to deal with it much more quickly for you. However, going forwards, we want to reiterate that the SLA is whatever, and this is what it is that we're going to stick to. And it's the same, kind of email response times within your teams, within your organization. I don't know, let's say you're all kind of sat at your laptops at 10 o'clock at night. Please don't, prioritize your sleep. And some of you are like, yeah, 10 o'clock is like more like midnight. But whatever it is, just because I did it today does not mean that it's safe and okay for you to be email. It doesn't mean that I want to respond to you every single night of the week at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
It might just be, I had a few minutes. I just wanted to get my own inbox straight before I went to do whatever it was that I had to do tomorrow. And it worked for me. Just because we all happened to be sat in front of our laptops at the same time does not mean I'm available at 10 every single night. So again, that's the boundary that we need to be put in place. And I would say for those things, like if you can, even some of those you can get, some of the systems have got them built in now from an email perspective, haven't they? But you can like auto delay your emails. Even if you are even if you work until 2 o'clock in the morning, again, please don't. But set your emails to go at a particular time the following day so that actually the responses come through during working hours. That is at least showing and demonstrating the boundaries that you have in place.
The industry that we work in, there are always going to be times when you're going to be working out of hours. You have evening meetings with residents, so you've just had a meeting, so you want to fire off those emails to make sure it's done and you don't have to think about it the next day. There's a crisis, there's a major flood or a fire or something like that, but yeah, you're right, that's not an everyday scenario, and nor should it be an everyday scenario that you're working really late into the night or into the early hours of the morning. But there must be loads, but common misconceptions, I guess, around burnout that you would like to put to bed, shall we say, that you would like to address. And feel free to rant as long as you like. Feel free to rant.
Oh, there's so many on this one. Burnout has become a bit of a buzzword. And we used to be like, if I'd have seen you, I don't know, on a Monday morning, like, hi Jodie, you okay? Yeah, I'm so busy. Oh my God, me too. And we'd start almost like comparing how busy we were. I must be busier because I want to prove to you that I'm better. And I want to prove to you that, I'm worth more and all of this stuff. So we would almost like go into a fight as to which one of us was busier than the other. And then we stopped changing busy for stress. So I'd then be like, hi Jodie, you okay? Oh my God, like I'm so stressed. My stress is up to, oh my God, me too. Let me tell you about. So then we started arguing about stress with each other. And again, it became a competition, like who is the most stressed? Because the most stressed must also be the most successful. And we seem to, over the last couple of years, as we have started to use the word burnout more and we see it more, we seem to have replaced busy and stressed with burnout. How are you, Jodie? Oh my, like, I'm so burnt out. I'm so burnt out. Oh my God, me too. And then we start comparing burnout with each other. Burnout, if we were calling it what it actually is, so I think even the word burnout has not necessarily done it all of the favors. Burnout is chronic, debilitating stress. It is not like just feeling a bit tired on a Friday, right? It's not having worked all week and then be like, oh my God, like it's Friday, I'm so burnt out. And then switching off over the weekend and coming back Monday really refreshed. Burnout, as we've talked about so far, can take months and years to manifest. And it can take even longer. It can take months and years to recover from. So it's not something that's going to be fixed with a spa day or a night out with your mates or a holiday or a bank holiday weekend or none of those things are going to stop burnout. In order for us to fully prevent and to recover from burnout, we've got to do a lot of inner work. So if you are using burnout as a word, because you mean busy, exhausted, Friday feeling, needing a holiday, the end of a project, needing to get some other people in because you're overworked or overwhelmed, I just want us to kind of look at expanding our vocabulary because we think we're replacing tired, exhausted, overwhelmed, overworked, frustrated, we're replacing all of those words with burnout. So actually we're not voicing what's really wrong with us to allow us to get the right solution. But also then, because we are replacing a lot of that word, those of us that are nearing burnout or coming to burnout then don't think it's burnout because we're not recovering from it as quickly as everybody else. So it's doing a lot more harm than good. And I would also please never, unless it's actually going to stop, please do not use burnout in any of your marketing. I got really obsessed and ranty about this at the kind of end of 2022. As we were coming into 2023, the amount of companies that I saw, let's make 2020 let's have a burnout free 2023. Right. And they're selling me they want to sell me a phone, or they're trying to sell me a new accounting software. That's not going to stop burnout. It might reduce some of my stress, and it might save me 10 or 15 minutes a day, or it might save me 2 hours a day. But that does not mean that it's going to banish burnout. Burnout is chronic and debilitating stress. So if you've got any marketing materials,
I promise.
or anybody listening or whatever else that is this is going to help burnout, really. So I really want to kind of go from that. Burnout is serious. If you Googled now chronic stress, you'll get 3 billion results or something that will be talking to you about, like Jodie said, right? Sepsis, pneumonia. For me, it's created 3 lifelong health conditions. It can cause diabetes. It can cause heart attacks, strokes, autoimmune conditions, autoimmune diseases. You can die from chronic and debilitating stress. Language really, really does matter. And I know it's probably another word that everybody think, we can't use this word anymore, and we can't use this word anymore, and what are we supposed to say? But I think just really just being mindful. If you mean tired, say tired. If you mean overwhelmed, say overwhelmed. If you mean overworked, say overworked. And hopefully then I think that would help everybody to get the right level of support that they needed. I think if we throw everything into a bucket and call it burnout, we're not fixing the issues. We're not really getting to the heart of those issues. And if we don't get to the heart of it, remember, burnout is the outcome of something else that is eating away at the surface. And it's the something else that needs fixing in order to help us stop burnout.
Thank you for saying all of that. But I know, you said at the beginning, you literally live and breathe this stuff, but you are the expert. I know you caveat that with you're not the medical professional, but I'm sure that anybody listening to this is going to feel so much safer in your hands, if you like, just by listening to this podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope it helps. I always say, if it's one person I can help a day with this stuff, then we'll do it.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. But lastly, before I let you go, if there's a property management professional currently experiencing burnout, what would you suggest the first step would be to take towards their recovery?
If you really haven't already, speak to a medical professional. You're going to need time off. And again, I think this is a big misconception that a lot of people have. Like, it's like, oh, we think, yeah, this is it, all of the signs are there, like my body doesn't want to go on anymore, my brain doesn't want to go, like I physically, mentally, emotionally cannot take on anymore, and yet I still here, but I've just got to get through until my holiday, or I've just got to get through until Christmas, or I've just got to get through until here. All you're doing is stealing tomorrow's energy to help you get through today, and you are going to end up in the biggest energy deficit ever. If you think you are there, what you do need is to stop. And if you are business owner, founder, managing your own business, managing your own portfolio, doing whatever, remember what I said earlier about that work addiction, right? If I'm saying take a break, take some time out, rest, recover, speak to a medical professional. If you've already got the thoughts in your head, well, I can't do that because I've got too much on, or I've got this next week, or I've got this next, if that's already, that's a sign. What I will say, and this again can probably sound really harsh, if you do not take the time now, you will absolutely be forced to take the time later.
Which I found out.
Absolutely. Like, you didn't choose to be in hospital with sepsis.
No.
I didn't choose 2 operations in 48 hours. I didn't choose, like, I literally, and I can give an example of this, right? I'm 11 years out of my first burnout now. As I said earlier, my first one made me seriously ill. My second nearly killed me. I am 11 years out of that first one, and my body still does not allow me to push anywhere near like I used to. I was at an event in London a couple of days ago. I was out of the house for 14 hours, and I don't do 14-hour days, but it was a day-long event that I wanted to be to. I was offered to sleep over or to stay over in London the night before, and I was like, no, I'll be fine. That was on Wednesday. On Thursday, I couldn't move. Like, my body will not allow, because I now am, if I do not take care of myself on a daily basis, I crash. I don't have it in the tank anymore. So, the longer that you keep pushing, and even when I was having those 2 operations in 40 hours, I was still working from my hospital bed. I am the voice of experience, right? I'm in hospital working. So my brain was telling me, keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. And that's exactly what I did. So the first sign, literally, you have to stop. And your brain will be telling you that, the world is going to end. Everybody will think you're a failure. You might get the sack. You might lose your job. You might lose your business. All of those thoughts will come up, because that is your inner critic. That is your inbuilt primitive part of your brain trying to keep you safe. But I promise you, if you do not take the break now, you will be forced to do it later.
Kelly, you are incredible. Thank you so much for being with me today. How can people find you if they want to?
I am most active on LinkedIn. So if you want to give me a follow, you can have a look on LinkedIn. So Kelly Swingler. I've got resources. I've got burnout risk assessments. I've got burnout assessment. I've got everything over at kellyswingler.com. So yeah, I mean, if you want to have a look at what your burnout risks might be as an individual or as an organization, there's a free burnout assessment that you can complete on there. But if you've got questions, messages, whatever, find me on LinkedIn, drop me a DM, and I and or member of my team will come back to you ASAP.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I really appreciate it. I'm a little bit baffled by it all, but you've really put everything into perspective for me, and I'm sure many other people as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Speak soon.
Take care.